Okay, here we go. Tasting number 105 for the Saratoga Whiskey Club. Thank you to Shalom for correcting me on the number of this tasting. I think in my original email I said 104, so we had almost two 104s, but that's how quickly we're moving with the club these days. But tonight should be really fun. We've never done a tasting like this before, so this is a first for the club. We're doing American whiskey that does not include bourbon or rye as its own category. So we're doing everything else that's made in America on the whiskey side. So it's going to be an interesting one. I have not tasted most of these. Actually, I've only tasted one of these. So I will be joining you along in discovering if these are any good or not. But this should be a lot of fun. We do have a scorecard. We do have a pretty significant group tonight, so let's try and score if we can. That will be helpful. We don't have any special guests tonight, so I'm going to be doing the hosting. Please use the chat room. You can chime in whenever you want. We're going to kind of do old school Saratoga Whiskey Club style tonight. We do have a lot of stuff coming up, so keep an eye on your emails for all the fun tastings we have coming up. But all right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I do have some slides that I put together just that describe the bottles that you don't have to ask 3 times what the ABV is or any of that stuff. You know, Holly started doing that with the What's New tastings, and she gets you know, pretty involved in those details, and she likes to do that. So it's rubbing off on me a little bit. So I did some slides tonight, except for one bottle because I couldn't really find much about it. But we are going to start off with really kind of a unique brand that's just started in the US not too long ago. And, you know, some of us have had the Tumblin' Dice store pick that Holly and I picked with Dan in the shop. Really, really great. You know, some of you have had the Stranger, which is the Polish whiskey, which was the first bottle we had in the shop. Also very good. We did the Senator at the club dinner last fall. Also very good. And then we had the Representative bourbon in the shop as well for a while. So all of those brands are under the title of Proof and Wood. Proof and Wood is this, basically it's a spirits company. I have a little blurb here on it. It says they're kind of a interesting, almost like a corporate spirits company, but it says, we invest in and develop spirits brands and age our own spirits. Our core business is sourcing and bottling fine American whiskeys, but we also import other high quality spirits from around the world that were not available in the US previously. Founder Dave Schmier is delighted to be able to create both cocktail friendly bottlings for value focused bartenders and high-end collector's editions for connoisseurs. The name comes from the 2 things we control as a blender and finisher of fine spirits, and the 2 things that are incredibly important to any spirits flavor: the proof that it's bottled at and the wood of the barrel that we age it in. So that's where you get the name Proof and Wood. Dave Schmier, just a quick background on Dave Schmier. He was the guy behind Redemption. So a lot of you have heard of Redemption, both bourbon and rye. Basically, Redemption was a similar type company where they were getting barrels from MGP and bottling under the Redemption brand. So, you know, Dave Schmier became very good at doing that. And so he sold Redemption, I believe it was back in 2015 or so, and then moved on to start Proof and Wood, and has been doing really well with that. And again, he picks barrels, he knows how to blend. The first 2 whiskeys that we're having tonight are really unusual blends. You know, something that you would never think to do even. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen about this first whiskey as we start to talk about Proof and Wood, the 2 bottles. Let me know if you guys can see that okay. You can see that all right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So we're starting off with Vertigo. And Vertigo, it's an interesting kind of concept. It's a lot of different whiskey combined, and actually Seasons is as well. But Vertigo, it's basically supposed to give you vertigo. You've got, you know, all of these different styles of whiskey. And, you know, we're talking about 2 different light whiskeys, and we'll talk a little bit more about light whiskey when we get to our last 2 bottlings. But we have a very old light whiskey, 1992. So we're talking really old. And then we have a 2008, and then we have a rye, 2012 rye, which is a 95% rye. And then we have a 2015 bourbon, which is, you know, these are pretty much those standard MGP mash bills. So you know, when we did the Stellum single barrel in the shop, it was the same mash bill as this 2015 bourbon, the 75 corn. So pretty high corn content. Be curious to see what this tastes like. You know, these first two bottles are not cheap. These are kind of limited edition. These are what Dave Schmier creates for the connoisseurs. So. And this is the first time I'm actually tasting this as well with you guys. I'm going to take a look at something here.
Very tasty.
Very tasty.
I even get a little, it's like vanilla and pine resin on the nose. Very buttery palate.
I get a lot of cinnamon and clove and toast and really yummy.
There's a lot going on in here,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's spicy, a little peppery.
but not overly so.
No, it's very pleasant, very nice. Yeah, it's kind of like the spice level I like, you know, when you eat like some food that's got just that right amount where you just know how to use it.
And it seems to get sweeter and sweeter as it stays in my mouth.
Right, I'm getting a little bit of bitterness on the finish.
A little minty on the nose too.
Yeah,
We're all over the place.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, kind of reminded me of pine resin.
Ooh.
Charles, do they say anywhere the percentage
No,
of the blend?
no.
So when it says it's a 1992 American Light, does that mean it was matured for 28 years or 20 or 30 years?
Actually, it's 25 years is the actual age of that first one, and 12. So we have a 25 and a 12, and then the rye is 8 years and the bourbon is 5 years.
This is similar to what Barrel does, where they blend all these aged whiskeys together.
Yeah, they do some of that, right? And they use a lot of Canadian whiskey, you know, when their blends as well.
Barrel or this place?
Barrel.
Don't the Found North people just buy barrels and blend them?
They do that as well. Actually, I'm going to read this. I'm on this one site that I just found, and it's actually kind of cool. And we might as well talk about light whiskey since it's part of this first bottle as well. We might as well just jump right into it. But this is actually a pretty good explanation. So I'm going to actually read this because it's kind of funny too. So this is a blog post online. So they start out, what the fuck is light whiskey? And then they say, okay, maybe that's a little harsh, but seriously, where is this coming from and why now? Short answer, light whiskey is whiskey distilled higher than 160 proof and up to 190 proof So we know bourbon, the max can be 160 proof. So we know right off the bat that it's above the bourbon rule limit. In the US, whiskey must be distilled no higher than 160 proof and enter the barrel no higher than 125 proof. Light whiskey is a totally different category, related, but different. It can also be aged in used or uncharred oak containers. Still has to be oak to be considered whiskey though. So, you know, light whiskey doesn't have to be in a new charred American oak barrel like bourbon does. When you distill to that proof, not only are you stripping out more and more flavor, scent, and mouthfeel molecules, you're also creating something that can be influenced more quickly and more broadly by the container in which it's aged. You can mature and go to market quicker. Why would you want this? It's pretty simple, really. Bourbon drinkers celebrate the joint resolutions of Congress in 1964, naming it the country's native spirit. But the reality is that it was also a move sponsored by Kentucky congressmen to boost bourbon in the face of a clear spirit onslaught. Vodka was rising, bourbon was falling. Rye was almost dead, and whiskey distillers were scared. A solution was come to. In 1968, the light whiskey category was introduced with the specifications noted above. A lighter, cleaner spirit somewhere between vodka and whiskey. Light whiskey was a grab at straws to rescue the industry from its clear spirit doldrums. Needless to say, it didn't work, and it wasn't until the 80s that bourbon and whiskey began to rise again. So that's where light whiskey started. And then it says, following most everything spirits related that doesn't work in the US, light whiskey made its way to Canada, where companies like Shenley's, Seagram's, Hiram Walker, and more use light whiskey to stretch their whiskey stocks. When light whiskey and its E returned to the US, it was done quietly and sat for many years at plants like Seagram's, MGP, distillery in Indiana. Many years later, that's where David Schmeer, Proof and Wood, came across these barrels. So, you know, not only did David Schmeer get his barrels from MGP, which were originally Seagram's barrels, but so did Penelope. So the Penelope light whiskey that we're going to have later, that was also part of that Seagram's production back in 2008. Proof and Wood isn't the only company to put out a light whiskey blend. Cat's Eye, Obtainium, and several others did the same. Vertigo is a blend of 25 and 12-year, 8-year rye, and 5-year bourbon, proof to 105, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so there you go. That's a little bit of the, you know, history behind light whiskey, and you know, how it's come back to, you know, kind of this new renaissance in a way, even though there's not a lot of it to be had.
Is anybody still making light whiskey, or is it all just aged stocks hanging around?
As far as I know, nobody is, but you know, the barrels that were obtained from MGP that were Seagram's original barrels, you know, were considered kind of, you know, barrels that nobody even knew about. So, you know, it's kind of a special thing that they came upon these older barrels.
Hey, Charles, so I got a question in regards to that. All those really nice flavors that you're getting in there, and you said in the beginning that they are more easily influenced by the barrel. The fact that these have spent a lot of time in a barrel, then is that where you're getting a lot of that complexity? And if they were to move forward and make some new stuff, we shouldn't expect it to be as tasty, or?
Well, you know, it depends. Somebody was walking. I don't know if they were trying to get in here or not. You know, the fact that you don't have to use a new charred American oak barrel, there's probably a lot of different things that you could do with light whiskey that, you know, you couldn't do with a bourbon or a rye. So it's possible that there could be a barrel that would be really perfect for a younger light whiskey. You know, High West had a light whiskey that Holly had, and I tasted it the other day. That was a much younger light whiskey, and you know, that worked fine. So it's not necessarily, it doesn't mean that it has to be, you know, in a barrel that long. These were just kind of lost and forgotten about. So that made them almost even more special. You know, we have the barrel here of the Penelope that we chose in November. And, you know, it's a pretty old looking barrel. It's definitely spent time, and it's a, you know, it's a refill barrel. So who knows what it was used for beforehand. You
And
know,
that's an excellent bottle.
yeah, and that's a pretty special bottle. So, and only 66 bottles came out of that entire barrel after 13 years. So, you know,
So Charles, would you say that American light whiskey in terms of character and kind of its origin and production is similar to how in Scotland they have single grain whiskeys, which seem to also be higher ABV and they use the column still higher ABV. Is that kind of, this is kind of like the American version?
it is, because, you know, light whiskey back then was being used for blending purposes. You know, it was really, it wasn't really used. I mean, I'm talking about like in the early 2000s and stuff like that. You know, Seagram's was using that mostly to proof up, or, you know, to change their blends, you know. So grain whiskey, similar, is used for blends in Scotland. So yeah, I mean, it is kind of nice to taste it by its own, like grain whiskey as well. Grain whiskey is fantastic on its own, and, you know, especially the older stuff. You know, some of those older grain whiskeys taste a lot better than some of the older single malts. So, you know, it's kind of fun. I'm really liking this category a lot. Now, it's hard to say how much in this bottle we're tasting is light whiskey or not. You know, I have a feeling it's a decent amount, but I don't know. I don't know if it's 50% or not, but.
Given that some of those Scottish single grains are made with corn or wheat, et cetera, the analogy is probably even more apt.
Right.
Yeah, and it's typically, you know, 99% corn when it comes to light whiskey. So, you know, it's basically a corn whiskey, just distilled at a really high proof.
It just because it came to mind because somebody said, is anybody making this now? I forgot that I got this as a gift. There's a distillery in Marlborough, New York called Stout Ridge Distillery.
Oh yeah,
that makes light whiskey.
Oh, do they really?
So this is their light whiskey, which a buddy of mine who knew I was a whiskey drinker was on a trip and stopped there and bought it for me. I'd never heard of the entire category before. It's pretty good. It doesn't have no age statement, no information.
Okay, interesting.
47 proof, 47%, 94 proof. But
I wonder if so they've reached out to me a few times, both with the club trying to get us to go visit, and with the shop too. I wonder if there's a way to taste some of that, you know, without it being proofed down, and to see, you know, what it would taste like at natural cask strength. That'd be pretty interesting.
It's not a bad tasting whiskey. It tastes young, but also like light whiskey is, I don't know, it's so proofed down and so extracted, you know, who knows what that actually means.
Yep. So this is a collector's bottle. You know, these first two are definitely made for, you know, it's the Dave Schmier followers of the world, you know, that really have followed his progress as a whiskey blender and bottle picker, you know. So they're definitely like collector's bottles.
I like it.
It's very well balanced. It's very nicely balanced.
Yeah. Matt, did you say Scout Ridge?
Stout Ridge, S-T-O-U-T. Yeah. It's at Westwind Farm.
Where is that? Yeah.
It's in Marlborough in Ulster County.
Winery and distillery.
And I mean, on the back, I was looking to see if they sourced it from somewhere, but it says produced and bottled at Stout Ridge.
Yeah, they actually have pretty nice stills there. I've seen pictures of their operation. It's legit. They have like Scottish style stills and everything there.
Where's that?
I'm getting a lot of chocolatey fudge now in this.
In the Vertigo?
Yeah,
I think you have vertigo, John.
then it's been successful.
Yeah.
That's that Kuwaiti taste profile.
To me, there was like a slight bitterness on the finish, but it did finish up with vanilla.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Don't get me back onto that.
John at the end of this is gonna have to stay on. We'll have to explain
Gonna be on a Jerky Boys CD.
Yeah, I know, I'm waiting for that, actually. That'd be pretty good. I'd be proud of that if that was the case. We'd actually post that on our website if that was the case. All right, so we're gonna move on to seasons. So seasons is even a.
Uh-oh.
Hello?
Yep, they're back. No. So seasons is even a more kind of rare combination of whiskeys, and I'm going to pull up my slide here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so here's seasons. So we're talking 4 whiskeys, but we have a pretty old Tennessee bourbon. We have another light whiskey, 2007, so similar in age to the last one. And then we actually have a corn whiskey. So that would be, you know, it'd be a light whiskey, but distilled below the 160 level. And then you have another bourbon similar to what we had in the last bottle. So this one's even more expensive, closer to $200. So it's even more.
You said below, but you mean above? Wouldn't
And
No,
Charles,
corn
it's
whiskey
not
is
light.
different. Yeah,
Okay,
it's not
sorry,
light
sorry,
whiskey,
sorry.
right?
got it, sorry.
Yeah, John.
why would that corn whiskey not be bourbon? Because of the cask they used or what?
Yeah. A lot of times that's the case.
Charles, can you put that back up again?
Yep. I was gonna read something, so.
I thought there was a maximum percentage of corn also, you could call it bourbon. I thought a 9900% didn't meet some sort of requirement.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact. I was gonna actually look when that question was asked. Are you good, Shalom?
Yeah.
I have a thing on this bottle here to read. I was just trying to see if they mentioned anything about the corn whiskey in here.
I don't think there's a maximum on bourbon. It just has to be at least 51.
Yeah. Well, let me read this. This is from the Whiskey Wash. So Proof and Wood Ventures recently unveiled a special release blend of rare whiskeys to its lineup. The Seasons 2021 series reflects a long-aged spirit, in this case, a Tennessee bourbon from 2003 that spent 72 seasons in a barrel. So think 4 seasons a year.
So 18.
Yeah, Proof and Wood's founder, David Schmier, explained that spring, summer, fall, and winter each generate temperatures that affect how the spirit in a barrel cycles through the wood and how it can change the flavor of the juice. These 4 18-year-old barrels had amazing, savory, deep flavors and spicy cinnamon and sugar notes, but were certainly leaning towards the edge of being overly woody, he said. While it was tempting to bottle them as single barrels, ultimately blending these ancient barrels with some younger and sweeter whiskeys created a whiskey that is better than the sum of its parts. The whiskeys in season 2021 include a 2003 Tennessee bourbon, a 2007 American light whiskey distilled in Indiana, the 2015 bourbon that we had on our slide, distilled in Indiana, and a 2013 99% corn whiskey distilled in Kentucky. The distiller's notes show that the corn whiskey and the bourbon offer a sweeter counterpoint to the musty notes of the older Tennessee bourbon, allowing the desirable older flavors to be highlighted as well as balancing out some of the harshness of the wood. And Schmier said that the American light whiskey does a good job of bridging the gap, bringing some more lightness and fruit-like flavor to the blend while still adding some spicy cinnamon and clove-like notes to the finish of the product. It was originally to be released in 2021, but the distiller noted that supply chain and production issues delayed the launch until 2022. 1,000 bottles, retail price of 200. Da, 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 da. Our name, okay, yeah, that's it. So here we go, seasons 2021.
This is really nice.
Looking at, it's on my phone, so it has to be true. Says that corn whiskey has to be aged in uncharred or used containers.
Okay, there you
And the
go.
bourbon has to be in the
Yeah,
new charred new.
that makes sense.
I like this one a lot. I like it even better than the
Yeah, this is pretty fantastic. You know,
This is awesome.
both of these I noticed, I don't know if you've looked at your glasses. I mean, you can also feel it coating your tongue. They're both really
Yeah.
viscous.
I like the other better.
What was the ABV on this? I know, Charles, you put the photo up for that.
52.5, I think.
Yeah, they're both 105 proof.
Yeah, I'm getting, this on the nose, a little of that mintiness, grassy, floral, that cinnamon spice. Yeah, it's really nice. Just a lot of things going on here. Very nice. I think it seems to be a little more refined than the first one.
I like this one very much, but I'm a cheap date, I guess, because I think that I like the Vertigo better because this is the seasons I find to be almost too spicy.
This is too bitter.
This has a bitterness on the finish. The water made it less, and I'm getting a little more cherry on the finish now.
Bitterness in my mouth.
Yeah, water would be good for this tasting for sure, because as we go along here, we're gonna get into some pretty high octane whiskey. So definitely good to have a dropper.
Yeah, and I had a beer before this tasting because I had to go meet Claire at Walt Whitman. So
Priming the
we had
pump.
a beer meeting. The
You
library.
had to meet Claire and you needed a beer to be able to go meet
We got a
her?
library meeting, so we went to Walt Whitman. Got to order something. What do you order? Beer,
Behind that.
I had a smoky stout.
Good. How is Claire? She doesn't do tastings.
She's been very, very busy. That's why she's like running all over the place with that library, the library stuff. Now I'm getting very busy with it.
So that melon you're getting on the finish, Beth Ann, that's the light whiskey coming through.
I like this a lot.
I really like this. This is one of the better whiskeys I've had in a long time.
Hey, Charles, let's just not assume it's Beth Ann, okay? I do have a palate. I do have tasting notes.
It was Luke anyway. He's in charge of it.
It was Luke? Well, then it was definitely not the light whiskey. It was something he had for lunch today.
Yes,
It was
yes, absolutely.
just a minute ago.
I'll go back to behaving now.
I always behave, just not well.
You know, the other day, Luke was in the shop and Nick McGrady was in the shop. They're both here at the same time. And, I was waiting for Luke to beat him up, but it didn't happen, because Beth Ann won the calendar. But it was an interesting moment in whiskey history there. Yeah, this is pleasant. I like this.
I think Sadie would have taken my arm off, right? Is that her name?
Yeah, Sadie. Yep.
Well, if this is only the second one out of 7, we're in for a special treat tonight.
Oh yeah.
And it's all downhill from here. So
Yeah.
sorry.
No, it's not.
That's the downfall of starting out with 2 spectacular ones.
Well, when you have a tasting like this and you have some blends that are pretty complicated, or there's a lot of layers to taste through compared to what we're coming up on. You want to start with these, because you want to be able to dig deep into these as we go on. It'll be interesting to see how much we taste of that last whiskey tonight. I have a feeling our palates are going to be a little shot by the time we get there. But
If I'm at a buddy's house and he asks me if I want a whiskey and he's got a blend, this is not what I'm expecting.
you know, I mean, we're in a world of blends though now. You think about Penelope, you think about all of these companies that we really like the whiskey from. You know, we have the Nulus, we have the Lucky Sevens, and you know, all of these different brands now. They're great blenders. They're great bottle pick or barrel pickers. They're great blenders. You know, High West kind of was the first to really make that thing here in the U.S.
Their campfire is excellent.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of their expressions are really great. The
Campfire is one of my favorites. I have a few bottles of High West, but that one is particularly one of my favorites.
I mean, even their double rye is great. So, and they are basically blend. I mean, they're distilling now, and they're starting to bottle some of it. It's mostly MGP and a little bit of Barton for the most part.
Yeah. That and the boar rye is also very nice.
Yeah.
The Boo Rye.
Yep.
Well, the Boo Rye is similar to the ones we just had. The other ones they're blending different barrels, but basically the same whiskey.
Yeah.
Campfire is a Scotch
Right.
rye and bourbon.
Right, but I'm saying the Nulu, I think, are taking different bourbon stocks for their bourbon.
Yeah,
They're
or
not
they're single
taking-
barrels, right?
So it's a slightly different type of
Yeah,
blend.
they're really good at picking barrels, though. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's kind of,
Yeah.
you know, you either are a really good blender or you're really good at sourcing. You know, and
Mhm.
you're not. It doesn't mean you're a distiller. That's basically what I'm saying. Is you know, a
Mhm.
lot of the hot brands right now, you know, aren't even distilling anything. They're just taking whiskey and doing something with it, and
Mhm.
whether they're aging it or not in their facility or bottling it right away, you know,
Mhm.
it's kind of it's different. You know, it's just a different kind of world now. It's similar to Scotch, you know, in Scotland, what they've been doing forever. It's just
Independent bottlers who have been doing that.
Yeah.
Just interesting that how many different flavors you can get by people who just buy from the same distillery.
Yeah.
How different the distillery is. I guess it's all where it's been aged in the warehouse.
Yeah, I mean, there's climate, as we'll see with Balcones, you know, the temperature swings, and you know, it depends what part of the country you're in. You know, there's a lot of whiskey that's being sourced and then it's aged out in the Northwest, you know, in Washington State, and it's a completely different environment there, you know, or it's aged in Colorado where it's at high elevation, or you know, all of those things make a difference. It's not
Made quite the dent in this.
There you go.
It's the campfire.
Okay, so we're gonna move on. We're gonna go to Old Pepper now. We did an Old Pepper rye. That was a distillery exclusive. It was the Kentucky Finest, I think it was called. We did that in a rye tasting not too long ago, and we did and we had an Old Pepper single barrel rye here in the shop for a while. And so in November, when I went down with John and John, both Johns here tonight, on our Rascal and Thorn trip, we did pick a barrel of rye, but at the same time in the shop, they had some really cool expressions. And one of them was what we're gonna drink next. This is a distillery exclusive bottling of their own single malt. Now this is distilled by them. This is not sourced. The barrel that I picked in November was sourced. That was actually from MGP. That was a 4-year rye. But this is actually distilled at the Old Pepper Distillery. I did show, I think I was at our last rye tasting, a video, and we're not going to watch that again. But I am going to pull up just a screen with some pictures, and we can talk just quickly about Old Pepper. Let's see here, where is it? So let's see here. So, you know, they're younger, so they started. It's a very old facility. If you look at the pictures on the bottom here, we have a picture from 1894. You can see these big, you know, facilities here. You see the smokestacks coming out. You know, they were a very big distillery back in the day. We're talking the late 19th century. And then, you know, here you have 1936. Come on, open up. So here's 1936. So obviously quite a big change. A lot of those big buildings, actually, they burned down in a fire. So there was a lot of change, but same location. And then here's the distillery in 2000. What was that? 2008. Here's 2008. It kind of looks like the building in Albany that needs to be destroyed. That's been sitting there forever. The eyesore. Yeah. So they decided in 2017 that they were going to resurrect the brand. So here's 2019.
Wow.
Same spot. Yep. Yep. Beautiful facility. It's actually in this kind of really cool location with lots of neat restaurants and some bars, and it's a really great spot for them. But here's a picture of their current still house. You can see the really tall copper column still, and then you have the hybrid pot still next to it. So pretty small compared to the big smokestacks that you saw in the pictures. You know, the fermenting tank is, you know, you can stand around it and almost hold hands, whereas in a lot of big distilleries, you couldn't even think of doing that. So
If you have enough people, you can.
if you had enough people, sure.
So-
Serious question, are there 2 condensers on top of that pot still?
It
Two
looks
column.
it looks like one condenser is coming off of the column still, and then the other condenser is coming from the pot still. So
Oh, okay, thanks.
yeah, that's what it looks like to me.
So when they make
the
their
column
single,
still is going into the low wine tank here, and then you know, then it goes into the pot still, and then comes off as the spirit. So
when they make their single malt, are they doing it with the column still and the pot still?
I believe so. I believe so. However, there is like no information online about their single malt. That's why I don't have a
But you-
slide. I don't have a slide for it because there's literally nothing online.
And you said it's their own spirit, so it can't be more than 2 or 3 years old.
It's 2 years old.
Huh.
Here's the bottle.
Yeah.
Here's the bottle. It says right on the bottom, single malt or single barrel. But above it says single malt, single barrel. It does say on the neck, age 2 years, what cask number. This is a single barrel, so there was only one barrel. Barrel proof.
What's the barrel number?
Barrel number is Sam Michael 003. And the
Single
ABV,
malt 3, okay.
Their third barrel they've ever made.
it could be. ABV is 53.6.
With respect to the hybrid, I thought it was usually the pot still first and then a short column. But it goes,
No, usually with a hybrid, you're going to have a pot still with a little bit of a column still coming up off the top of it, which
right.
in this case, you have this kind of, I don't know if you would even call this a hybrid, but it's not really a pot still either. So it's kind of an unusual shape. You know, it's, I don't know. I would call it a hybrid because it doesn't look like really anything I've seen before. So
Is that representative of what it used to be, or where'd they come up with that?
no, I think that's just their own new design. You know, back in the day, they were mass producing. It was a big operation.
Are they maturing this or in a ex rye barrel? Because I'm getting rye notes on the nose.
It doesn't say anything, Shalom.
It's interesting because I'm getting almost that same truffle umami that we had when we tasted the shibui.
All I remember is seeing this in the shop and asking them, is this like a distillery only thing? And they said, yep. And I jumped on it quick. I actually tasted it when we were there, but this was after I had had a lot of rye because we picked our barrel. So my palate was pretty shot at that point. But I do remember liking it at the time and buying it for a tasting like this.
Very good. I like it.
It's pretty wild. It's very grassy. Like it reminds me of the track in like the best way possible. Like it's like hay nose to palate, but in a really good way.
That's
I agree with the mushroom sentiment. A lot of mushroom.
There's that
Yeah.
mushroom, that earthiness that you get from that's
Overall, I'm not crazy about it. I think for such an ABV of where it's at, I think it's fairly light. I mean, it's not, there's not, I don't think there's a lot to it right there. I mean, especially maybe it's suffering after those first two.
That could be possible, and it's young. It needs probably more time, to round out. I think it's heading the right direction. I believe.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. It's just that it doesn't really do much for me though. Other than I do like the mushroom notes.
Yep.
So this, I think, is just as a broader like topic, because we're going to obviously be chasing this. We're going to do a Balcones. We've had Westland before. I think this is interesting because I'm starting to think that we're going to see, as American single malt expands, you're going to see those real regional differences, right? In what like single malt whiskey produced in Kentucky versus the West Coast versus other places in the country tastes like kind of the same terroir and profiles that we get in single malt Scotch, which is pretty cool, because if this is what we can think is going to come out of this region of the country, that's just it's an interesting layer to the whole whiskey experience.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I just love to see a Kentucky producer doing something other than bourbon or rye. That's not in their wheelhouse, right? I mean, that just shows you that American single malt is starting to appear. If we're starting to see it in Kentucky, that's a pretty big deal. It's definitely not something I had ever seen in Kentucky before. So, I kind of was surprised when I saw it and heard that they were even doing it. I'm trying to think of any other producer right now that I've been to that has even talked about it, and I can't remember anybody in Kentucky. So kind of cool, it was just, this is kind of maybe the random one that was thrown into the mix tonight. And it was a bottle that I picked up, 6 months ago now. And, it was perfect for a tasting like this. Now, speaking of Westland, we are going to do a Westland tasting in the next couple of months because we got the Garyana in. I thought Shalomi was calling me love there for a second. And then he said Luke, he cleared it up. I'm like, phew, got the Kuwaiti.
I love you too. I love you too.
Yep.
I love Lukey.
But we're gonna do a Westland tasting, hopefully with Devin, who's the brand ambassador now. And we talked, and there's a bottle that he has that he's trying to get into New York, which is a Red Hook Brewery collaboration, which would be pretty cool. And then I have 2 single cask nation Westlands as well to throw into that tasting. So we have a bunch of great Westlands. So that'll probably be in June, I'm thinking at this point, but that could be a really fun one. And again, American single malt. So, a few years ago, we weren't even thinking about doing multiple tastings of American single malt. So it's starting to change.
Sorry, Charles. Oh, sorry. Charles, did you say that Westland are collaborating with the Red Hook of the Red Hook rye that was recently kind of all the articles were about?
No, it's a brewery.
Okay.
It's the
okay.
West Coast brewery in Oregon. I think they're located.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I did like adding the water to a little bit, drop of water to this. I think it brought out a little bit more complexity.
I can't take credit. That was Brad.
Okay, Neil, I was gonna guess you're from University of Michigan with that address, but I'm not sure.
Well, I was going to say, I thought that this would be the one that I was kind of thinking that I might have some tasting notes on, given, I kind of grew up in drinking Scotch, but then this completely confused me. So I kind of, I mean, most of the time, my experience here has been kind of the advent calendars. So thinking to myself, what would I have guessed in December? And I would have got this categorically wrong and kind of just stared at the glass in empty confusion. So not much was going well on this one.
Nice.
Yeah, I would have guessed this. I mean, it's weird. I'm getting a lot of rye notes on the nose. I would have guessed this might have been some weird rye or some strange blend.
I'm going to go ahead and guess something like this will wind up in next year's calendar.
Yeah, and your wife is going to get it right.
She's going to remember that she had this today and all the
And
details.
then let us all know about it.
It definitely,
just you.
it definitely has a sweetness that I wouldn't assume a 2-year-old single malt would have. It must be in a really interesting cask. I mean, who knows? Maybe it was a bourbon cask, a fresh bourbon cask or something like that. Also, I mean, I'm getting a lot of sweetness from it on the finish, especially, but
Especially after the water.
Back to
I'm not
Kentucky,
doing
how
the
much,
calendar because I failed last year, so I'm not doing it this year.
yeah, Lucas is out. We lost Lucas,
I like got angry every
but
night.
his wife decided to do it. So,
Yeah. So I'm back.
how much barley is grown in Kentucky?
I don't think very much.
Yeah, so
Pretty
it's,
hot climate for that.
yeah. So that's, if they're gonna be making single malt, they're gonna need to import more of the grain, I
Yeah,
guess.
it's probably coming from up north somewhere,
Mhm.
my guess. As well as the rye. Most of the rye that they get is not coming from Kentucky either. It's coming from somewhere up north. Okay, all right. So before we do Balcones, which is the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society bottle and the single barrel from Balcones, I do have a video that I do want to play because we've never done Balcones before like this, and it's about 10 minutes, but it's got a lot of information on Texas whiskey and terroir, like we were talking. And so I'm going to go ahead and play this video. I might skip around and skip ahead if it's getting too boring, but I think before we drink these two, it might be a good idea just to kind of get a sense of Balcones and what they're all about. Okay, let me see how I can move this. Oh, there we go. I will make this big.
We're going to walk through all things Balcones Distilling, the original Texas. Here, we're going to look at the origins and awards, whiskeys, our unique processes, and a short video to close things out. My name is Alex Elrod, based here in Texas. I oversee the Balcones Single Barrel Program and spearhead brand education. So what is Balcones? Balcones is truly a sense of place. The word Balcones actually refers to the fault line that runs from South Texas near the Gulf Coast all the way up to Waco. We chose to name our distillery after our surroundings, as it pays homage to the single malt Scotch tradition of naming yourself by a place or landmark rather than a person, like you see in American whiskey tradition. The red logo you see here is actually an artist's interpretation of that fault line. Balcones was the first Texas whiskey sold after Prohibition and is regarded as one of the best craft distilleries in the country. Balcones is a pioneer in innovation, specifically in American single malt whiskey. We've always maintained focus on high integrity processes in producing everything grain to glass at our distillery in Waco, Texas. In 2008, we shoehorned our way into a 2,000 square foot welding shop. In 2011, we purchased the building you see here. and eventually moved into the space in 2016. This historic building originally housed the Fireproof Storage Company, which was one of 2 buildings to survive the 1953 tornado that decimated Waco. This building now houses our full production site that features world-class copper pot stills built by Forsyth, the best artisans in Scotland. This is Jared Hempstead, our co-founder and head distiller. He's always had a passion for craft, whether it's music or beer, and even spent his college years with a focus on fine arts and ceramics. From there, Jared fell in love with the world of single malt whiskey and set out to make the best American single malt using only the finest quality ingredients and processes. Jared truly is an embodiment of Balcones and the reason we blossomed into a leader in the craft whiskey movement. Most recently, in 2019, Whiskey Magazine named Jared the Icons of Whiskey Master Distiller and Blender of the Year. In 2010, we released Baby Blue, which became the first Texas whiskey sold post-prohibition. Not long after, we launched our flagship Texas single malt, which immediately won the UK-based Best in Glass competition. We were the first American distillery invited to enter, and we won. In the beginning of 2013, the New York Times published an article stating that Balcones was everything you'd expect from a young American: brash, robust, and full of flavor. It's like putting a new world wine against an old world chateau. How could a small Texas-based craft distillery beat Scottish distilleries in their own backyard? This created increased interest and demand for Balcones, and from 2013 to 2018, we were running off a strict allocation-based distribution model. During that time, Balcones was named U.S. Craft Whiskey Distiller of the Year. We expanded distribution to 15 states and reinvested $25 million into increasing capacity tenfold. In 2018, after coming off an allocation-based model, we launched our 100 proof rye whiskey and opened up distribution in our 21st state. In the spring of 2019, we introduced another new whiskey, our first foray into a 4-grain pot still bourbon. Most recently, Balcones and Davos brands formed a strategic national partnership which will help the exponential growth and expansion of Balcones. Our dedication to high quality whiskey production has been greatly recognized by prestigious spirit.
I'm going to skip a little bit
Due to the
here.
fact that we adhere
So these are
to
basically their
non-chill filtration
products.
practices. We also
Let's see
believe
here.
at these proofs and through our copper
Scottish
pot
grown
distillation
gold.
methods, we're producing whiskeys with an incredibly rich and oily mouthfeel. We
So
use the finest quality
Scottish
ingredients across these
barley,
marks, including a food grade Texas grown and roasted blue corn,
different kinds
Baby
of
Blue,
casks.
along with Texas grown rye and wheat for our 100 stone, our heavily smoked
Those
corn
are
whiskey
price
and
points.
rumble
Let's see here.
distilled
We got
whiskey processes. In regards
don't
to
need to
the
go over
American
that.
whiskey process,
see.
all corn, rye,
Here, we'll go
and
here.
wheat. Experiment, control, and truly innovate from mashing grain to the finished bottling line. Here you can follow our entire production path, starting with our 2 grain silos that each hold 60 tons of corn and barley that are milled and then moved to the cereal cooker in the mash tun. In this photo, you can see inside our 80-year-old mash tun, which was previously used by Speyburn Distillery in Scotland. After mashing, we then move to the fermentation yard where you can see Johnson pitching a mix of dry Scotch malt whiskey yeast and an English ale yeast. Our fermentation tanks draw in fresh air and force out CO2. This process draws in the native yeast and microflora from around Waco into every fermentation. Most distilleries ferment for 3 days, but we focus on an extended fermentation time of 7 to 8 days. After fermentation, we move to the distillation process. At Balcones, we specialize in a double batch pot distillation. And though it's not the most efficient distillation method, it produces the most beautiful and rich spirits. We first run a wash distillation, which separates the alcohol from a large portion of the water and leaves all grain behind. In our second distillation, in these spirit stills, we make cuts to determine what will flow into a barrel to become whiskey, which are called the hearts. This is the helical line arm on one of our spirit stills, Traditionally, most distilleries have a gooseneck linearm, but the artisans and engineers at Forsyth who produce these stills determined that the only way to replicate the copper contact we were able to achieve at the old distillery would be through these concise turns and helical linearms. Our proprietary stills are 100% copper, 3 stories tall, and exclusively designed for Balcones distilling. Gabe, our still house manager, is preparing to make cuts at the whiskey safes. After distillation, we fill a wide variety of oak barrels with new make spirit. Whiskey gets all of its color and a good bit of its flavor from charred and toasted oak. Balcones sources barrels from independent state companies' wine cooperage, making our casks a super premium asset. Unlike competitors, our casks have toasted barrel faces, higher stave count, and 36-month yard aging, which leaches out sap and undesirable youthful oak qualities. The average competitor's barrel cost is roughly $125 per barrel, whereas Balcones barrel costs range from $400 for American oak all the way to $900 for French oak. This is Jared in the midst of blending or marrying process. The marrying process is incredibly nuanced and sensory-based, where Jared and the blending team are tasked with hand selecting from a group of 600 plus casks. In this process, they're analyzing casks by nose, feel, taste, and overall mouthfeel before determining the final batch for bottling. Finally, the whiskey is ready for bottling. And here you can see Jordan at the tail end of the bottling line checking for quality control. We are able to highlight and showcase these unique processes through our expansive single barrel program. We currently offer 3 whiskeys to select from: single malt, rye, and true blue.
Skip here to the end. Come on. You can do it. There we go.
It was the first whiskey made and sold in Texas since Prohibition. There was no way to know what kind of whiskey this place wanted to make. Looking back now at 10 years of doing this, it's not data on a page, it's human interaction. You're making cuts, picking barrels, smelling and tasting them, and watching them grow up. Preserving that level of human interaction seems to me to be one of the biggest tasks we have, to never let that slip. We distill whiskey that at its best should be about slowing down enough to really take in the subtlety of a moment in a way that a casual pass can never do. When something introduces beauty into our life, it just changes things.
All right. Okay, so there's Balcones, which is pretty cool. I hadn't seen their operation before, and I'd really like to get to Waco at some point. But as you can see, they're
You join the Branch Davidians?
yeah, definitely. I've got my tennis shoes and everything. But we're, you know, when we see something like that, that's pretty serious stuff. They're taking this incredibly serious with Scottish stills and methodologies, and you know, this is Westland as well. You know, Westland is taking this really, really seriously. And you know, some of you went to 10 Mile not too long ago down in the Hudson Valley. You know, they're taking it seriously. So there's a lot of American producers now that are entering this whiskey market with single malt as kind of the thing that they're starting with. So as you saw in that timeline, you know, single malt was the original release and competition whiskey. So we're starting with a Scotch Malt Whiskey Society bottling. I don't know if some of you have already tasted it. I haven't yet. I've been good. Let's see here. Let's get to this bottle. So this is called throws you curveballs. When this came available, it was a while ago when I bought this bottle. I had no idea when I was going to use it. You know, again, I see things available and I kind of jump on them and then just sit on them until they fit something. And so when I saw Balcones, I kind of had to jump on it. This is the 4th barrel that the Scotch Malt Whisky Society has done with Balcones. The number is 140 of the distillery, and then the 0.4 means it's the 4th cask. This is a 4-year single malt. This is aged in new European oak barrique. And this is bottled at 67.8%. So we're talking pretty high proof, which a lot of these Balcones can be, the single barrels. Only 110 bottles were sold in the United States by the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. So they do have some notes here. Roses and carnations commenced a twisty ride through orange, grapefruit, and eucalyptus before taking on almonds, coffee beans, and bitter chocolate. Around the next term came deep flavors of licorice, raisins, morello cherries before we stopped for water beside fruit gums and navy rum. Treacle and toffee joined earthy notes of walnuts, tomato plants, and banana skin. I don't know where they're coming up with this stuff. Herbal notes on the palate now suggested red vermouth and licorice, while vanilla and caramel ice cream provided sweetness before we finished with strong black coffee and marmalade. So that was a mouthful right there. So
I'm getting the licorice and the coffee, definitely, and the vanilla.
Yeah, I got, before you'd read that, I'd written down the nose was molasses and malty yeast. The palate was cocoa and dried fruit with licorice. And the finish, I got cocoa and coffee.
I'm even getting a little tobacco note on the end, on the finish.
Root beer and sarsaparilla.
That's because you know it's from Texas.
I get the
Maybe,
banana.
but it's there. Terroir.
Texas by way of Kuwait, John.
What is this?
You'll find
I
out.
tell you, this almost tastes like the root beer Dum Dum Pop.
When I add the water on the nose, I'm getting that banana peel.
I can't believe this is so high in alcohol.
this would be a good one to add water to for sure.
Oh, yeah, it's delicious.
The palate tasted hot to me, but not 67.8. It tasted maybe 60, low 60s.
I would even guess high 50s. I mean, certainly not where it is. I think it's delicious.
Yeah, very nice.
I
My
love
favorite one so far.
I love the spice on it.
Spice, I love the nose on it. It's just, it's overall, it's got everything that I like.
Yeah, now I'm getting, with a little bit of water, I'm getting almonds on the nose.
The plum notes. Yeah, prunes. Prunes is great. That's a good one.
Well, that's probably from that barrique.
Was that Luke or
Is it
Beth
Greek
Ann,
or brew?
the prune comment?
That was Luke.
All right. Melons and prunes.
Yeah, prunes for sure.
Next calendar winner right here.
But which calendar?
Got a nice warm spice finish to it.
The April calendar, John.
Getting a little chocolate too, that toffee notes. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much going on.
I think this would be a tough one to guess Texas.
Yeah.
Personally.
It's,
You know, I'm used to the Garrison brothers, and I've had a couple of Balcones where, you know, you kind of have this more earthiness to it, and I'm not getting that at all on this.
I already gave myself a 0 for this one on the advent calendar.
Definitely has fruit notes going on. You know,
Oh, yeah.
it's funny. I find it hotter after adding a little bit of water to it.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe
Do you mind? Do you mind putting this slide back up?
yeah, sure.
Thank you.
I just got the almonds on that very last note too. Very nice. I tell you, I would definitely, this was worth $95 if they still had it, believe me. Worth the price.
They did sell out pretty quickly.
They don't have anything from Balcones.
These guys independently bottled this barrel,
Yeah.
but you could get something similar, but not this exact thing.
Right.
from Balcones.
Well,
single malt whiskey, I mean, not single malt whiskey,
Scotch Malt Whiskey Society,
no, the
Single Cask Nation.
Single Cask Nation, thank you. They had a great Balcones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's making this one special, I think, is that oak barrique, because I'm not sure what kind of fortified wine it had in it, but that's what's giving it some of this flavor.
Oh,
The
got
next
it,
one,
got it.
which is
Almost tastes like a, probably a port or,
Yeah.
But doesn't it say that it's a new
Oh,
oak barrique?
you're saying, sorry, real quick. You're
It's
saying
new.
Balcones doesn't normally put it in that barrel. Scotch Malt Whiskey Society put it in that.
no. Balcones usually puts it in a variety of. There's 3 different barrels that they typically use. It's right here. They do New American, European, or
Okay,
French oak.
okay.
So
They
this
just
one,
they
It
picked
is new oak. It
It's
is
not
new
X
oak.
wine.
yeah, this is New European oak.
So no fortified wine. It's just a new oak barrel.
I thought that those fruit notes would have come from it as well, because you saw European, you assume that it's an X wine barrel, but it says new. So
No, new European oak. Yeah.
They're just picking the barrel. They're not changing the.
Right.
Okay, I just want.
I mean, sometimes they finish it in something else, but not typically with American whiskey.
Got it. Okay.
That'll be with like, Scotch whiskey or.
Got it.
This one is my benchmark for this tasting.
I agree.
Hey, that's got to be a little bit different too, right? How much oak is coming in that direction to make barrels out of, as opposed to going in the other direction?
Yeah, it's really nice.
Really love the nose on this one.
Yeah, the nose I'm getting, after I added water, initially I was getting just a lot of molasses. After I added water, I'm getting all the nuttiness.
And prunes.
And I get that like apricot and prunes, the stone fruit. Yeah,
A lot of dried fruit in here.
yeah, a lot.
Not, yeah. Well,
It's like every sip I
yeah, that's a fabulous nose. That's actually one of the best noses I've come across in a while.
with every sip, I'm getting just something. I'm getting another piece to this.
would you say it throws you curveballs?
Oh yeah, that's a good name for it.
You got to learn to hit the curveball.
Yeah, that's pretty tasty.
Hey,
Okay.
John, what do you think this whiskey does for your libido?
It curves the ball.
Oh, no.
Man,
Charles, I think we know who called you.
This is being recorded now. Come on now, guys.
Well, what are you talking about? It throws a curveball.
All right. All right, let's move on to the next Balcones. This is a little bit more, I guess, I don't want to say traditional because it's in a regular Balcones bottle. But here's the slide. Now this these top comments on this is not for this particular bottle, but this is just something I found from Total Wine. This bottle that I have tonight is a Total Wine pick. So this is a single barrel that Total Wine picked. This one is it's in European oak. So it's kind of fun to compare these two next to each other because they're both European oak.
Do you know what the barrel number was?
Yeah, barrel's right there on the slide.
Oh, that is the barrel that.
It's just
the top was wrong. The bottom is correct.
Yeah, the bottom is correct. So this one
Wow.
this one is only little over 2 years old. Okay, so this is a lot younger. This is younger than the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society.
This is phenomenal.
This one reminds me of a whiskey we've had before. Not this exact, but this like full body raisins, fruit. I don't know. Like
There's something.
There's an herbalness
here.
to it.
I can't quite put my finger on it.
So Matt Coldrick bought these from a Total Wine, or it might have been even another store that had these in California.
Oh wow!
And had them shipped out, and he had texted me when he was buying them, asking if I wanted one, and I said, sure. Again, I didn't know what I was going to use it, but good price, $68. That's including shipping. So here we go.
This is phenomenal.
Yeah, this one's fantastic.
Look at the color on this one. This is 2 years old and it's this deep in color?
Yep.
Wow.
But and no caramel coloring.
Think about Texas, you know, the how hot it gets and the
Kind of like milk and honey, or
yeah, right, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, I am really getting apricots or something on the nose.
Apricot, even on the palate, I'm getting a little apricot.
there's something else in there that it's familiar, but I can't quite place it.
Charles,
Sweat.
is it possible they charred the barrel?
It's some kind of fruit, John, I think. It's
Yeah,
some-
it is. It is.
I get
Passion
sulfur
fruit.
on this
Passion
one.
fruit.
Like
Yeah.
a grilled pineapple.
No, it's passion fruit.
Passion fruit. Yeah, it is. Passion fruit.
That's it.
Yeah, or hibiscus. You know, there's like a hibiscus note to it as well.
It's passion fruit and guava.
Or
Passion
Jamaica.
fruit and guava.
Guava, yeah.
That
It tastes like
All the tropical fruits. It's like a Hawaiian punch of tropical fruits.
It's delicious.
Charles, out of curiosity, you mentioned earlier the temperature of the climate, the different areas of the distilleries. What does high heat, so obviously like a hot, humid Texas, what does it do to the flavors? Again, probably an amateur question there.
No,
but-
not at all. Not at all. So you're going to get a more evaporation, obviously. So you have, you know, the whiskey is going further into the wood for one. You're getting a higher angel share. You know, in Texas, from what I remember, it's, you know, close to like 4 to 8%, just depending on where they're located in Texas. So quite a high angel share, about 3 or 4 times Scotland's angel share. So, you know, you're just getting definitely more influence from the wood in climates like that. You know, it doesn't take long, as you can see, for the color to be in the whiskey itself.
into the wood.
So yeah, it definitely goes further into the wood, and it's, you know, it does get cold in Texas at times too. So there's definitely fluctuation going on there that you don't get, and more so than in Kentucky. You know, it's quite a bit more fluctuation. So
And then, so what? Out of curiosity, I mean, one of the things for me with this one is, I mean, it doesn't taste as hot as a 64 ABV. I mean, to me, it tastes quite mild, quite open, quite enjoyable on the palate. What is it what's softening that? I guess that moderately high ABV on the palate.
That's a great question.
Thank you. I'm trying my hardest, Matt. You know, I've got to show up good here for Matt. He invited me, and I don't want to embarrass him. So, you know, I took extensive notes. I did 3 hours of study. So I appreciate that.
I think part of it is the distillate. So, you know, if they're really good at making whiskey, it shouldn't taste as hot as whiskey that's made poorly. So they obviously know what they're doing when they're making it. You know, the copper stills that they have helps with that as well. At these high proofs, you know, when you're doing it the right way, even when it's super young, you know, I've tasted some new make off the stills that is very drinkable, and it's super high proof, and it's kind of scary, because it's going to really knock you on your butt really fast.
But
So
it's clean.
well, I mean, clean is a word, but it's just, you know, the fermentation matters, the stills matter, everything. So that's part of it. You know, and it's a good question. I mean, I think the wood makes a difference too. You know, how good the barrels are.
Yeah, Charles,
and the
I think-
flavors that you get from the barrel.
I think sorry.
You know,
I
they
think
were
when you
talking
said-
about how expensive their barrels. Sorry, Peter. You know, they're
Something-
$400 to $500 barrels,
Mhm.
you know, compared to the cheap bourbon barrels. So makes a difference.
Yeah.
It
And I
does.
think what you said was, Charles, but just to make it specific, it's the cuts. how much of the heads and tails you're putting in versus
part of
the
it,
hearts.
Yep.
And if they're just doing very tight hearts, it's gonna be smoother and not seem as hot.
Yeah, that's true. And you know, when you have more heads and tails in the cuts and you age it longer, that harshness goes away.
Right.
But at a young age, you probably are looking at more hearts being taken off of the still, which is the middle cut, which is the sweet spot, you know. Sometimes when you're aging for a long time, like in Scotland or other places, it's okay to have more heads and tails because that actually adds more flavors, but you need time for that to actually, you know, come out as drinkable flavor, not just something harsh and bad for you even. So
It's like the Stellum barrel pick. I got to remind myself that I'm drinking something that's over 60%, because that goes down so smooth. I call it my most dangerous whiskey.
Yeah.
That and even the Alberta Premium at 66%.
yeah,
You're drinking that and you do not realize.
yeah.
And that's similar to this. I mean, this is beautiful.
Charles, with those tropical notes in there, it reminds me of the Glenglass Evolution.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Charles, can you just?
That's a bourbon barrel, you know, the evolution.
Yeah.
So, you know, this isn't a bourbon barrel. So it's interesting that there's that similarity.
I think if I was tasting this for the calendar, I would probably guess India.
Yeah. It's so tropical. You know, I'm getting into the higher fruits.
Yeah, I agree, John, which is sad to say that I agree with you.
Hey, Charles, can you throw that slide back up for 1 second?
The interesting thing is, I thought.
Well, I feel like you just ruined a lot of things for me.
So this is a single barrel, right?
Kind of makes you wonder what a whiskey from Kuwait would be like.
Yeah, this is single malt.
No, is it a?
Could have sandy notes.
Is it a single barrel?
Oh yeah, single barrel. Yep.
Because so in the description, right? They describe it as either aged in a variety of new.
No. So that description is not this bottle. So this bottle is the bottom part. So this is a European oak barrel.
No, what I'm saying though is that in this series, I'd be curious to see what this single barrel. So are they saying that they pick and choose, or that they typically bottle this as a blend?
No. So single barrels will be one of these barrels. So this one happens to be European oak.
So maybe I'm not being clear in my question. Is this always a single barrel expression?
Oh, no. Actually, no, they have a regular single malt, which is probably a blend of the.
Oh, that was my question. Is like, I would be curious to see what the profile difference is between the European oak single barrel versus the blended aggregate single malt.
Yeah, I don't.
I've had their regular single malt and it was nowhere near as impressive and bold as this.
Well, that's typically the case when you're looking at a blend versus a single barrel, but
Well, very few would be.
Did anyone else get the taste profile of this? When I said it earlier, was Starward is what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that richness, not necessarily tasting exactly like Starward, but the richness of.
well, I mean, think of the temperatures in Australia as well.
Maybe that's
It
it.
would be similar to, maybe not exactly like
But
Texas, but they have
wasn't
very
Melbourne wasn't they talked
big
about how
extremes.
big
Yeah.
extremes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Huge.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, Starward is a good example.
Yeah. And I can
It's
see that.
interesting
Like,
because
you
you're
know what
getting
this-
some of the
what
same.
it tastes like to me a little bit. It could be an Australian whiskey and a Pinot Noir cask, like a lighter red wine cask. Like you get some of these dried fruits,
Yeah.
but not the sherry kind of heavy or Shiraz heaviness that we have in the Starward. But you know, maybe like a lighter red wine cask.
I would have thought this was a finished whiskey for sure.
Yeah. I think we need to welcome Lucas back into the advent calendar after that comment.
Wow.
Whoa.
So I have a plan. It's going to be Beth Ann, Luke, and Lucas are all going to get together on the advent calendar.
I think I'm gonna bet on Lucas to win it.
I'm okay with that, but you have to come up with a team name.
Perfect. Like a Benifer type thing.
They're cracking up.
Yeah, he's all. You can't even talk. Oh, I got 6 or 8 months to figure it out. I got it. I'm on it.
Lucas.
Yeah.
Lucas.
That
Look,
sounds-
you gotta go into
something
training like I did. I trained for
Luca.
cooks, I didn't tell you.
All right, we're getting off topic again. I think the Kuwaiti experience is coming back. So we gotta hone in on our next our last
Is that our team name, Charles? The
Yeah.
Kuwaiti experience?
Kuwaiti experience.
Oh, man.
All right, so we're gonna wrap up with light whiskey. So we're gonna end with where we started. And before we do the bottle that I haven't tasted, we're gonna do the bottle that I picked with Holly and Dan when we were at Penelope. And let me explain the story because it's a fun story. I know some of you read the blog post, so it might be hearing it again. But we went down to pick a toasted bourbon barrel. That was our goal when we went to Penelope in New Jersey in November. And we did our thing with the toasted barrel and found a barrel that we liked, and we let it stay in that toast for another month. But it was a barrel that we liked. And then Mike, the owner or the co-owner, he's like, oh, hey, I got some other barrels you want to just taste for fun. And so we're like, yeah, he said, I got light whiskey. And, I had the one light whiskey from High West a while back, and it was fine. I don't know. I didn't really know much about light whiskey at the time, so I probably didn't care too much. But Holly was really excited to taste their barrels. And so we went to the back there and tasted a barrel, and it was okay. It was fun. And then he said, how about we taste a couple more? And before you know it, I was climbing up to the top of this rack. It was probably a very liability prone move on my part, but he gave me a drill. And so I'm up the top of this warehouse, basically standing on other barrels and drilling into this light whiskey barrel, this one that we're tasting right now. And I poured it out into a little beaker, and we tasted it. And we all looked at each other and we're like, oh my goodness, what is this? This was like pretty crazy. And we looked at Mike, the owner, and he looked at us, and he was kind of like, I don't know if I should sell this barrel. I mean, he was really excited about it. We were all really excited about it. And he ended up selling the barrel to us, and we were pretty pumped. We had no plan on buying 2 barrels when we were down there. However, this one just landed in our lap. And he told us, that week following our visit, that Seal Box from Maryland was coming, and a couple of other really big bourbon picker clubs were coming to pick other barrels of light whiskey. And we were so excited to get our hands on that barrel in particular, because we tasted a couple of others, and this one was by far better than those others. So here you have it. This is a 13-year-old light whiskey. I do have a slide on this one. So this is, again, from Seagram's. We talked about it earlier on. 13 years. It's in a second fill oak barrel, so not first fill. It's 66.8%. So it's up there. We only got 66 bottles out of this.
You sold out on this?
Yeah, we sold out. It went really fast. We had people all over the country calling us. We had people from out of state trying to figure out how to buy it and get it to somebody that they knew in New York, because there's not a lot of this. So Penelope released their own light whiskey, so it was their own. I don't know if it wasn't, I don't think a single barrel, but maybe they blended a couple of barrels or something together. So there was, or is, a Penelope light whiskey out there, which is not a store pick. And then there are store picks, a few, not a lot. I know Seal Box sold out pretty quickly. So pretty cool to get the opportunity to be one of the first to get one from Penelope, but also just to get one, period. we were pretty excited. So,
Charles, where is Penelope located?
so they're outside of Newark. I can't remember the
Yes,
exact town, but
Newark Airport.
Is
they're
that
not.
the Seagram's Distillery?
I was
that
gonna
used to
ask.
have?
Charles, Seagram, Indiana, that became LDI and now MGP?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting location. I went there when we picked up our barrels, the one I
I'm
have.
talking about Penelope now. Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah,
Vinny.
very interesting place. It's in a very industrial area, but when we picked up our barrels, we had the opportunity to visit it. And we
Okay,
still-
well, forgive me, but I have to say it. What exit?
Is it off the Garden State?
I don't know
Probably around 13, right?
What I can tell you is that one of the barrels he gave us has about
Penelope.
it's half filled with whiskey. It just, when we got in here, it started leaking, and I called him and I said, this has some whiskey in it. He said, oh, all right. It's down my friend's basement. We're gonna leave it there. And he'll pump it out eventually, so maybe we'll all get a taste one of these days. My neighbor's basement.
Luke, does Beth Ann always make comments like that?
That's all Beth Ann. I can't even take credit for that.
Uh-oh.
It actually is in a pretty kind of shady spot. They actually age. They have some of their barrels in an old tractor trailer compartment that's not on wheels. It's just a compartment, and they really are running out of space. They're getting a lot of barrels now from MGP. They don't distill anything. They're just finishing in different types of barrels. Their regular recipe is a four grain. Our toasted bourbon is a 4-grain bourbon. That's their traditional recipe from MGP. So they just happen to get lucky and get some of these, we call them orphan barrels, from MGP that were originally Seagrams. So
They don't hide that because they've got like their employee list, and one of the employees is MGP. Like,
wow, there you go. So really fun, unusual. You're not going to find much light whiskey around. So this was fun for us, and then we have the next bottle too. But I'm going to still take a little bit here to drink this one because
This is lovely.
you can't rush these.
I mean, I love everything Penelope. And in fact, I'm glad I got the barrel strength from you.
I'm not getting much on the nose, though.
It's light on the nose, but the palate really delivers.
This is the craziest 68% sipper of all time. I'm so annoyed that I didn't buy it when I was in the store. I'm so mad.
Yeah, it went pretty fast. It was definitely our fastest barrel, but it was only 66 barrels, or bottles.
so are they, the Penelope group, the people, they're the ones picking the barrels, or are they blending them too, or just picking barrels?
Some are blended, yeah, and some are finished, and other like toast, our toasted bourbon.
Yeah.
They had toasted casks that they put into.
Well, glad I got a taste.
We're gonna do a lot more with Penelope. We've really developed a great friendship with them. So we're gonna be doing other unique, hopefully really unique things with them that will be one of the only clubs / stores to do that kind of stuff. So
It's just mind-boggling that this is 66.8%, and I could just sip this all day.
It doesn't drink like it's that hot even at all. It's
There's
a dangerous strain of whiskey.
Yep, that's in the dangerous category.
Actually, Vincent,
I mean,
you probably
that's
couldn't
been a-
drink this
a
all day.
trend. I mean, certainly that was the case with both Balcones as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I preferred the Balcones. This doesn't seem, well, the Balcones is single malt. This is a
this is a whole different category.
whole different category, but the proof in wood had a lot more going on than this does.
I disagree. I don't want to disappoint you, Shalom. So I
Just go
disagree.
back to Kuwait, okay, John?
I'll tell you what a roll we are on in the last 3 we've tasted. Quite a roll, I tell you.
Yeah, right, Vince? Yeah.
Thanks, Shalom.
Good thing I can sleep late tomorrow.
I have to go get my second booster tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm getting my second booster tomorrow also.
I would have gotten it today, but for this.
Right. Ditto.
I have to schedule mine. I haven't thought about it, but next week, hopefully I'm less busy.
I'm actually getting mine tomorrow too, so looking forward to that.
I found out my son today had now fully vaccinated and first boosted and now got COVID for the second time.
Mild symptoms though?
Reasonably.
Are they different strains? You have any idea?
Yeah, probably. The first time he got it was the Omicron. And now it's probably the next one.
The BA2 or?
Of course, it probably didn't help him that he was at a concert in New York this weekend that was sort of like a rave.
That'll do it.
Okay, we're gonna move on to our last bottle of the night.
Oh,
this was I was at the Party Source, which is a store next to New Riff.
Oh yeah.
In northern Kentucky, and I can't remember what time it was that I was there because I went.
It was with us.
When I got this
all of
one,
this. Yeah,
you got one of these?
I did.
Oh, okay. So had no idea who these people were. I actually at one point almost bought a bottle that was made by the same group, but I did a little research on them today. The company behind J. Mattingly is called Bourbon 30, and they're in Georgetown, Kentucky. So this is distilled in Indiana. So this is obviously the same kind of probably batch of barrels that Penelope got their hands on. This one's lower proof. This is 122. And I'll pull up the slide, but I want to just talk about them a little bit first. This one only, there were 94 bottles. So again, we're talking, lots of angel share. So lots of time spent in the barrel. There's no age statement on this at all. I can't find anything whatsoever on this particular barrel. This barrel is called Precedent. Let me just share the slide as well. And it's from what they call their J. Mattingly 1845 series. And if you go, and this isn't the same bottle that you see on the picture, but it's this. I can't find a picture of this bottle that I have. It has a different color wax on the top. It's brown instead of blue, and same on the bottom. It's brown, not blue. But that is a light whiskey picture. The higher proof, that one's 133, so quite higher. But there's something weird going on with them right now, because if you go to their website and you do J. Mattingly 1845, it takes you to a disclaimer that right now they can't like tell you how to get any, and they had a problem with their distributor, and so there's really not a lot of information on the 1845 series. But the company behind it is called Bourbon 30. And they actually have a pretty cool experience that they offer. And when I go in May, I'm going to try and do it. It looks like it's one of the better bourbon experiences when you're down in Kentucky. So I'm going to see what that's all about. But this is another light whiskey. So this would be an interesting kind of side-to-side comparison to the Penelope that we just had. When I saw it at the store, I needed to get it. Again, I was thinking about what we're doing, and when I got it, actually, that's right, John, because I picked the Penelope barrel before we went on that trip. So when I saw this light whiskey, I had to get it just because it was a single barrel and I needed to compare it to something. So we'll see. I don't know anything about this. I've never tasted it, but
It's pretty dark too.
It's actually
What was the price on this?
This was really,
120?
it was 120?
Something like that.
I think it was even more.
I don't think I would have bought it if it was more.
Hell of a pick.
Oh, it's delicious. The palate on this is lovely.
I kind of remember it being like at least 150, but I don't
Really
know.
like the palate of this. The nose is a little
Absolutely
light.
agree.
The nose is light.
Yeah, I mean, the alcohol kind of hits me in the face first, and the nose is pretty light. But the palate is incredible.
I got some chocolate.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, I let's put it this way. I'm not upset with what I spent on it.
No. Yeah, this is pretty good. I love how light whiskey can have all these different kind of notes. You know, it definitely has that fruity side to it with the one, you know, like the Penelope has more kind of this custard fruitiness to it, and the High West has like strawberries like crazy, and then this one has that more cocoa
Yep.
tone going on. You know, it's kind of all over the place. It's kind of fun.
Looks like a cocoa finish in your mouth.
I like this one.
It's interesting that this light whiskey was kind of intended to be a inexpensive, push it out the door, but it has some real complexity in some of these. I mean, really nice.
Yeah. I mean, and again, you're not going to see a lot of this going forward. This is, we're hitting like the peak light whiskey moment in whiskey time for a while.
They're not making it, you think? Because
Well, they're probably making it now,
But
you
it's
know, but it's going to be a long time before we have anything like this again.
Because the light whiskey's got to mature for a really long time.
Yeah.
So
So
But yet they do that thing you read, Charles, was saying that the really, really high ABV distillation level helped it get its, you know, pull stuff out of the wood right away.
yeah, but I mean, that's not always a good thing, though. You know, I mean, you definitely you want it to tame down. You know, so the High West one, I believe they proofed down. It wasn't a cash strength offering. It was a younger offering. So, you know, if you add water to it, it's gonna make it more palatable.
No, but I was just thinking in terms of if it's sucking all kinds of flavor and stuff out of the wood, you don't necessarily want to leave it in wood for a long, long time.
Well, this is a second fill though. So it's not taking out as much flavor as a first fill. You know, if it was a new barrel or a first fill barrel, you know, yeah, you would have problems putting light whiskey into that. You know, you want a barrel that doesn't have a lot of influence, but has enough that you're going to get something out of it. You know, you think about like in Scotland, some of the best whiskeys are second fill that are really old. You know, that are 25 plus years old. You can't do that with a first fill barrel. You know, it's going to become just too much, you know, similar to a bourbon. When it gets to 15 years, it's already pushing the envelope in terms of time. You can't do that in Scotland with a first fill barrel either. You know, with a second fill barrel, you can go for 40 years. And every year it adds a little bit more complexity to it, and you can get really, so same kind of concept with light whiskey with the second fill barrel. You know, you can go longer with it because you know the oak isn't going to dominate.
But as you described it, it was originally meant to compete with vodka and tequila. I'm sorry. Vodka or tequila, so they weren't going to keep it in barrels long if people had actually bought light whiskey.
It was
We're getting these old stocks because no one bought it.
It was a play on the name. You know, the term light was trying to compete with clear spirits. So that was the thing. It wasn't necessarily what it was. It was more about what it was called, and just trying to get people to turn their heads again towards whiskey.
I think it's less filling.
Tastes great.
Yeah.
You can tell our age when we know those commercials and other people don't.
Adding
Well,
water.
it's funny because
Yes.
one of the things that they always use when they're talking about the decline of whiskey back in the 70s and early, 80s even, was when Bartles and James became a big thing, and
my
I
God.
remember Bartles and James and the two old guys sitting out on the porch, drinking their Bartles and James. And
That was me and John.
yeah, that was you and John. And, I look at Holly when I hear that, I said, "You've had Bartles and James, right?" And she's like, "What is that?"
Yeah,
She doesn't have any clue what Bartles and James was. So
Are you gonna put matching rockers out in front of the store? Or no?
Yeah, I've never heard of it. I actually want to know what it is.
It was like
a
fresh wine
from Fritzer.
from Big Yellow.
wine cooler.
Wine coolers.
Wine cooler.
Yeah.
Huh.
Ed and I have decided that yes, we've heard the name, but I don't believe we've ever had any.
I think it's the kind of stuff that gives box wine a good name.
Exactly.
You leave box
Yep.
wine.
All I know is I want Matt Slaughter's house. Look at that tree behind him. Oh my goodness, that's just like crazy.
Let me.
This is totally my house and not a fake background.
And the pizza crust on the side.
That's a chair.
That's a chair.
This is a pillow.
Oh, it's a pillow.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh.
It's just that because I have a fake
That's
background.
real. That's the real part.
Peter, the pizza crust is behind you.
And this was some really strong whiskey tonight.
Did you see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
I don't think pizza crust looks like strips of bacon.
Vertigo. Let's go back
It's
to
giving me vertigo.
All right, favorite whiskey of the night.
Oh, you can see it. Good. Okay. Never mind.
Penelope. Store
Yeah.
pick.
Nice.
Balcones.
Thank you, Luke.
I think the second Balcones.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, single barrel, single malt.
I'd say the Seasons was my favorite and the Mattingly was my second favorite.
Really?
No.
Second
I used
Balcones.
to respect your opinion, Shalom.
I'd go with the Balcones and then the Penelope 13 year. That was my two favorites.
Yeah, I think the Balcones and the J Mattingly, for me, I'm like a chocoholic. So anytime I get that like fudge note, especially when it feels deep to me, I just love that. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the chocolate notes in the Mattingly. But something about that Seasons was just so complex. I liked all the different things going on there.
Too many good ones to pick. I really liked the Vertigo. I thought the throws you curveballs was fantastic.
Oh, yeah. That was
really good.
And I like the J Mattingly for the cocoa chocolate tones and the Balcones single beer. I mean, it was a wonderful tasting, Charles.
Yeah, this was really
yeah,
special.
this was incredible.
So, cheers.
It's
Yeah.
fun to try these new styles, and I'm a big fan of American single malt, and I will be a promoter of American single malt going forward because that's really, there's always going to be great bourbon and rye and whatever, but what can you do that's going to give you the most variety? Single malt gives you the most variety. You've got different types of casks, you have different terroir, you have peat, you can do all sorts of things. So in terms of like where is going to be the most like unusual and fun kind of stuff in the US going forward, I really think it's in the single malt world. It's still early, but this was a great example tonight of where we're headed. So
I'm really enjoying the old line, that bottle we got.
yeah, and old line.
That old line.
So speaking of that, two things about old line. One, I have more old line. So if anybody wants another club bottle, I still have bottles here.
Wait, which one?
The old line club bottle with the membership this year.
Old line?
Old
line.
line. Yeah.
Old line
American single malt finished in Madeira.
It's good.
It is delicious.
Where the hell have I been?
Yeah, that was the
You
club
were
bottle
sleeping.
this year. That was on the membership.
I won, John.
Did that go out?
That must have been the week you were in Kuwait.
Yeah, there it is.
It's not much of a endorsement, but neither Ann nor I can remember that one either.
Yeah.
All right, well, it was on the membership form if you want.
I missed it too. I don't know what I was up to.
All right.
You signed off on your form to give away your life savings or your life to Charles. You
have
could
to
have gotten
read
a bottle
the
and that was the bottle.
No, so there's still a lot. So if you guys want bottles, please. And I have
Please.
I have them open. I have one open if you want to taste it before buying too. So
You have to read the membership form.
it's
before
not sold through the store. It's through the club. I paid for them all myself. I'm sitting on cases of money that I fronted for the club. So if you guys want one or want another one, let me know. That's the first thing. Secondly, Mark from Old Line is coming to Saratoga Springs on the 29th of April, which is a Friday. We're going to be doing actually first fill along with Hamlet and Ghost. We're actually picking a rum barrel with them. We're collaborating on a rum barrel. But that evening on the Friday, Mark is going to be coming and we're going to do a casual tasting get together in my office on Broadway. He's bringing 7 different expressions. You know, I'm just gonna buy some snacks, so it'll probably be like $10 a person to come and just hang out with Mark, and then we can all, if we want to, go somewhere else afterwards and have food or not, or more drinks. But it's going to be a really fun thing. I'm going to send an email out tomorrow about it. It's open to whoever, so it's not a limited thing. I know it's a Friday, which is tough for some people, so but just keep that in mind if you're interested. He's a great guy. I've gotten to know him pretty well.
Did you want to keep recording?
What's that?
Did you want to keep recording?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I don't.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'll be there.
When
It's not a difficult day.
The
Oh man, I'm gonna have to miss that. I've started up again with Diageo. I'm working that night.
Oh,
I'm gonna be in California AA
there you
on a
go.
Rascal and Thorn trip.
Yeah.
My wife and I.
Well, let's see for me.
So just FYI, but if you want one of those Madeira bottles, I've got plenty here. You know, same price as what they were in the form. So, you know, just let me know and just come in and grab one. I've got plenty. But yeah, so I'm going to stop the recording now.
By the way,